Hey guys, thank you so much for joining me in another video. So very fascinating story from the world of luxury fashion. The sale of Jane Birkin's original Hermes bag prototype just broke records by selling for over $10 million at auction. Just to be more specific, it was 7 million, but then around 8.6 million euros when you add the taxes, the commissions. So wow. This isn't just any Birkin bag, it's the original prototype. It was what inspired and became a global phenomenon. This is a part of fashion history. It belonged to none other than Jane Birkin herself, actress, singer, activist, and true icon of this sort of like effortless, chic, Parisian style, like in a really true, honest way. Like again, what people always talk about is how she wore the Birkin, how there's even controversy around that. But in Paris, Sotheby's held an auction called Fashion Icons where this bag went under the hammer and bidding started at around 1.1 million, quickly skyrocketing to 1.5 million even before reaching the auction room. This was within just a minute. It shot up to 3.2 million and it just kept climbing every minute and it reached this jaw-dropping final price of 7 million euros. And then, you know, of course, we have the taxes.
7 million euros, j'adjuge maintenant, et c'est bien vu, à 7 millions. Adjugé au paddle 149.
Now, the buyer, apparently there were people that were in the bidding process. Apparently Lauren Sanchez, the new Mrs. Bezos, had bid on this bag but lost to Valuance Japan, a Tokyo-based reseller of designer goods. This price broke previous records for a handbag at auction. A very rare Himalaya Kelly bag in crocodile with diamond sold at a Christie's sale in 2021 for $510,000. But how did this bag come to be? The story is part of the legacy of this bag. Back in the early 1980s, Jane Birkin was on an Air France flight seated next to Jean-Louis Dumas. And as the story goes, she was trying to fit her things in the overhead compartment, but they tumbled down. This sparked a conversation between the two, how she needed a practical yet stylish bag, something larger than the very famous Hermes Kelly bag. That was their most famous bag at the time. And Birkin famously said, "Why don't you make a bag that's sort of 4 times the size of the Kelly, that you could just leave open, and that's about half the size of my suitcase?" And Jean-Louis Dumas replied, "Well, draw it for me." She sketched the design on the back of a vomit bag right there on the airplane. And it's so fascinating how this is how this bag came to be such a iconic, luxurious bag. So Hermes created this prototype based on her sketch, very much in a similar design to the Hack. This was also a very famous bag known for carrying equestrian gear, also famously worn by Serge Gainsbourg, her life partner. But from that, this bag was born, destined to become one of the most coveted luxury items in the world. Today, modern Birkins, they go from various prices on the resale market depending on materials, customization, types of leather, conditions. They range almost up to like 5 figures to over $100,000. This bag has also become immortalized in pop culture. I think of that famous Sex and the City episode. There's been best-selling books bringing home the Birkin. We've been talking about the style of Carolyn Bessette Kennedy, and that opened up a whole discussion on the Birkin and how she wore it. There's also that aspect as well. A lot of very famous, stylish women throughout history, from Kate Moss, Victoria Beckham, Lady Gaga, Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen. Famously, there's the beat-up Kelly, very famous women. What's very interesting about this style is it does feature a shoulder strap, which later versions never included. It also has gilded brass hardware. I discussed a lot of the differences in my initial video when this bag went up for bidding, but this bag was owned by Catherine Bagnier, founder of the Paris vintage boutique Les Trois Marchés. She purchased it in 2000, exhibited at very prestigious museums around the world. What's also very interesting is how Jane Birkin had donated this bag to charity in the 1990s. Jane Birkin was someone that supported activism and charities. Jane Birkin was more than just a handbag muse. She definitely embodied that Parisian chic style. influenced fashion culture around the globe. She sadly passed away in 2023, but I think her legacy, including this bag, lives on. And I even think in the culture of handbags, the number of times handbags have been introduced that very much look like Birkins or Kellys. Like I think of most recently the Balenciaga Rodeo bag and like the Bel Air bags feel like versions of, in ways, like homages to Jane Birkin's original bag and how she wore it.
Ah oui, sans problème. Oui. Petit sac aussi? Alors, tu as appris quelque chose sur moi maintenant que tu as vu mon sac? Même si on déballe tout, on ne dévoile pas grand-chose.
En fait, tu as quand même été un peu révélée par les hommes que tu as aimés, par les films qu'ils ont fait pour toi. Les chansons.
What makes this bag so special is the high degree of craftsmanship, quality, as well as there is this exclusivity about this bag. There is definitely that. But I think it also represents a story of collaboration, creativity, and timeless style. How from a very simple idea, cultural phenomenon was born. And I think it is very interesting with this recent looking at icons with famous bags. I was thinking about how at the last Met Gala, thinking of the very famous Andre Leon Talley Hack 55, Morgan Stewart had purchased this bag. I believe it was for her husband, but I could see how certain iconic Birkins, Kellys, Hermes bags, hacks could start to be even more highly coveted. Other iconic Birkins or Hermes bags, of course, there's Grace Kelly's Kelly, Mary-Kate Olsen's very beat-up Kelly, Carolyn Bessette Kennedy's Birkin 40, Serge Gainsbourg's hack. Like, maybe this could be a video on some of these iconic, famous Hermes bags. It's definitely boosted up Hermes. I was reading this morning how apparently the heirs of Hermes have become the wealthiest in France, and it is no longer Bernard Arnault. There is also this critique around this bag. You know, this was a bag she donated for profit. Also how there used to be stickers and the stickers were removed. Like there was a UNICEF sticker on this. There's a fair critique around the obsession with wealth and flexing and what I think a lot of the Birkin has become to symbolize.
It's 4,000.
I know.
And there's a waiting list.
I assumed.
5 years.
For a bag?
It's not a bag. It's a Birkin.
And I think this is such a fascinating statement. It's not a bag, it's a Birkin, but I also think it's something that has transcended luxury at this point and what we understand luxury to be today. And I think it has entered this realm of something that is a cultural artifact. When talking about other fashion collections, like for instance Dior, we were talking about Chardin to Basquiat to Warhol, and how LVMH with Dior is approximating their fashion to the world of art. Yet when I look at the Birkin, I think in its own right, it can sit at a museum alongside these pieces that LVMH is trying to be associated with. And of course, you know, Basquiat, Warhol, Chardin, those paintings are worth millions and millions more. I understand it's absurd, someone spending $10 million on a Birkin, on a very used handbag. It is crazy, but again, I don't think this is just a bag. It is at this point now, a cultural artifact. I also think it is quite symbolic how a bag like this has like entered this tier. And I think there's something very special about this bag not being so pristine and being quite battered. I think it represents this very lived-in intimacy that Jane Birkin had with this object. And, you know, she was messy and she was expressive. And I also think it flips this conventional luxury resale value on its head. And of course, this bag is sold to a Japanese reseller, which feels so fitting, but this $10 million price tag wasn't for an exotic skin or some fancy version or bespoke version. Of course, it was the first of its kind, but it had the scratches, it had the sticker imprints. While we're in this age where everything is replicated or AI generated, there's something meaningful about marks of real life and someone who lived authentically. There's something beautiful about that. But yes, that's my video for today. Thank you so much for joining me in another one, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.